And there may be situations also where there's the appearance of a conflict, and you also have the right under the statute to abstain. If you abstain, you have to sign the abstention form at the meeting or within 15 days after the meeting. Okay?
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. And if you ever obviously have any questions before the meeting, you can just call me or email me.
I didn't have a question for just now,
Okay.
but thank you.
Sure.
Did I give the same short answer?
I think so.
The non-legalese version? Yeah, this thing said about 15 days for filing,
That's what there was
but a little knowledge of
15
the
people
law. would not-
you never know.
Well, I have a sick dog.
No.
The
My
one
new-
the old one you're taking care of?
yeah, took him to the doc last week,
Well,
and
I
he's
just
got
did
a
No, there's
mass
two white ones.
that big.
Picture.
He's so big it doesn't even show unless he lays down.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? I fell in love with that guy the minute I saw him, and somebody had spoken for him, but that's a done deal. I'm not gonna let him go. So he's with me. And he's so cool.
What's the prognosis?
He's 12, so rescue can't start putting 12-year-old dogs
Right,
through
right.
surgeries like that, and he seems comfortable, so
So you just do the best you can.
yeah. Oh, he's so wonderful.
Getting rid of most.
He just wants to hug.
Aw.
Thing is if you have divorce paperwork that shows.
Somebody loaned me a
technically
ramp
don't even-
/ steps for him to get on the bed, but he's kind of afraid of it, so we gotta work.
What are you?
with
I
him
know.
for a while.
My friend did the same thing with her Labradoodle. Because the one can't hard get up on the bed and Is that a dog? Talking about dogs.
Kind of like it. Maybe just because we're thinking about dogs. Labradoodles are so cute.
And she got that thing and they won't use it.
Oh, well, somebody loaned it to me. So if it doesn't work, I'll just give it back. But it's beautiful. It's like a piece of furniture.
I know you probably
And
have
the
a few more
steps,
things to worry about.
they're steps, but if you just lift the step and move a piece of wood, it
He's
turns
still
into
at work,
Fort
right?
Wayne.
Right.
It's
Oh.
carpeted.
You know,
The carpet matches my house. And
Wow.
so my grandson
You know, when
came
they're
over the other
deployed,
day, and I said, go up and
you know,
down. a
he
couple
normally
times so
finds
you can
out
see what it's
24 to
about.
48 hours in advance.
And we didn't have
so-
time.
debating
Like
anything?
we go in there and do that again, and I get on the bed for
Yeah,
free.
I do that a lot.
He'll come
I
up
imagine.
there.
Imagine there's a lot of
why is
parents.
He has lost weight, so he's getting up.
Did I
He's
send you a notice?
and he's anemic, so they said boil up some liver and give it
It's
to
kind
him
of
every
scary
day.
watching this stuff about the threats
He's
from
loving
North
that.
Korea and,
No, that's
No,
good.
it's Naomi.
you know, Guam and
Oh, Bayshore.
so forth.
Is that Goldie?
Fortunately, not all the threats are coming.
She's just being a staff.
Yeah,
She's in
true.
compliance. Oh, all I'm doing is
I'm a lifelong
establishing
Democrat.
it
So
for future projects.
when he ramped it up, that whole fire truck,
Not the tag.
it's like the old record players. You had 33, 45, and 78.
I'm
You don't
going.
necessarily have to go.
I'm going
Oh,
to see Tim Tebow play baseball.
I was hoping to go to, I'm sure we could get in, but I heard every place he goes is packed.
Yeah, I figure.
They said,
And I talked to the
hope
tires
they
off.
Carry a big stick.
Start out.
And
She's
you
on
know
there
what?
She's on
I know.
I thought
And
that
the
was
newspaper
from
had
that
an article
movie
about him
with,
this morning, and it wasn't very
who's the
flattering.
guy that used to carry
he's
the
too
big
old.
stick?
Where they named
the
everything he did
sheriff.
wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So I hope
He stole it from the president.
I went online
Yeah,
yesterday.
I think Teddy came first.
You can
Says
hang
out.
Tebow and
But she's
the
in
Mets,
compliance.
so I hope he gets in the
She's
big
good.
so
There's no
I
problem.
can wear my
I
t-shirt.
yeah.
And I get so tired of seeing having people. I do Facebook, and there are people go, oh, none of Florida even likes him.
He often tells you
Are you
in the
nuts?
beginning of
He's
the
still in the
case.
stadium.
Who do you say none afford? Yeah, he's still in the stadium, he's right.
Yeah, their ticket sales are crazy. And we got
Well, if
free
you're only hearing
tickets,
part of the case, that's not good for you.
T-Dog.
You need to hear all the case, and so
I
if you
know.
can't hear, you need to tell them.
Enterprise.
Yeah.
We play trivia down there, and we've gotten to be friends
Usually
with
see
the
her. I saw her
manager.
the
And
other
she
day.
said, well, we've
You know,
got
she
free
was. I told her. I said,
tickets.
find the
And she
minutes.
gave
Yeah.
our group, somebody in our
And
group
then
was
the
real
thing
close
is,
with
if
her.
we can get
She
somebody,
gave
I'd
them
love to get
2
fired.
tickets, and she said,
Talk
but
to the
we got
janitor.
old tickets, and if they don't
Yeah.
get used, you can take
Good,
them
get
and
rid
get
of
new
it.
tickets.
Callie's not.
So they got 6
What's her
in
face next
all,
door?
and one of the girls went down to the Threshers Field
Yeah.
and traded them in for
Just throw it in
people
your driveway.
night.
But
So
you can hang if you
6
want,
of us
but
are going, then I found out 2 more friends are going, so we're gonna have a big old party.
I know.
Don't make it work.
Exciting. That's a nice stadium.
You know,
Since I know
my
it's yours, I'll
son,
pay
when
tax.
he was
We
in
still all the
Little
same
League,
number, right?
played a game or two
If it's just
there,
gonna
but that
They
was
have
like
fixed it all up. It's
50,000
so
years
nice.
ago.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
We've gone down a couple times where they played.
if
and then
nobody's
had,
here.
Fireworks there. They
Oh,
had
yeah.
Beautiful fireworks.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you really?
It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. The faster that we can get them through the dais, the better. Because there seems to be a lot of time spent on the exhibits. Okay.
I don't see anybody up there, Tom, but you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, as soon as you hit that hammer down and then they move over to the window.
Gotta go. I'm gonna take off. All right, brother, take it easy, thanks.
Well, it's
Okay,
2 o'clock.
ladies and gentlemen, let the record indicate that the time is 2:01 PM, and I call to order the August meeting of the City of Tarpon Springs Code Enforcement Board. And I would ask Mr. Trask if you'd lead us in the invocation, please.
Our Heavenly Father, we seek blessings on the tasks before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality. We pray that our work this afternoon will find favor in your sight. This we pray. Amen.
Amen. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I would ask the secretary for a roll call, please.
Mr. DeMossis,
Here.
Mrs. Archer. Here. Ms. Vacacy,
Here.
Mr. Bergerman's absent and excused. Mrs. Dabbs.
Here.
Ms. Wade.
Here.
Mr. Weeks.
Yes, here.
Please, your roll call.
All right, I'll now explain the Code Enforcement Board hearing procedure. It is the intention of this board to promote, protect, and improve the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Tarpon Springs by providing an equitable, effective, and inexpensive method of enforcing various codes within the city of Tarpon Springs. Any aggrieved party may appeal a final administrative order of this board to the circuit court. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 days of the execution of the order to be appealed. Florida statute 286.0105 requires any party appealing a decision of this board to have a record of the proceedings to support such an appeal. The procedure of this board is as follows. First, the city presents its witnesses and exhibits, after which the alleged violator is able to ask the city's witnesses any specific questions regarding their testimony. Secondly, the alleged violator is allowed to make a presentation and present his or her witnesses and exhibits. Then the city can question the alleged violator's witnesses. After both rounds of testimony, both on the part of the city and on the part of the alleged violator, each party is asked to give a closing argument, first by the city and then by the alleged violator. After those three steps are taken, this board will close the public hearing portion of the case to discuss it and take appropriate action. Before we begin the public hearings, we will have all potential witnesses stand up and be sworn in by the secretary of the board. So if you intend to give any testimony, please rise and the secretary will swear you in.
All righty. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can see.
Okay, and would everyone please turn off your cell phones, turn them to silence or to airplane mode. Thank you. Today's first case is number 17-800000276. The address is 305 South Safford Avenue. Is anyone here for that particular location? Apparently not. Officer Gasson, if you're ready to present the city's position.
Yes, sir, thanks. Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement Officer, been so employed for 2 years now. The case I'm presenting before the board is 17-800000276. The property address is 305 South Safford Avenue. Property owner is listed as an Antoine Winthrop. The case before the board is in reference to City Ordinance 8-40, which is a duty to maintain private property, in particular nuisance violations occurring on the property. Based on the definition, which I'll summarize under 8-41 sub C sub 4, which states the repeated attraction to the premise where the use or condition complained of is maintained by persons who, through frequent precocious or disorderly conduct, or through repeated disturbances of the peace, or through violations of any law of the state, county, or city, adversely affect ordinary, reasonable, and reasonably behaved persons in the enjoyment and use of the property. I have 4 exhibits that I'm passing before the board. Exhibit number 1 are photographs, and basically that consists of the sign posting because there's no photographs of the actual violation, because I'll have to explain it. Exhibit number 2 were the notices, to include the notice of violation and the notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative docs, which include my case summary, the property appraiser, and tax collector's records. And exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign posted. And Mr. Chairman, if you would, for the record, enter those into evidence for me, please.
Yes, I'd like to point out to the secretary, as all of the exhibits are passed down, if you would please collect them and add them to the record. Go ahead, officer.
Thank you. The case initially, I opened July 21st. What basically it is, it stems from a Pinellas County drug roundup, was conducted with a number of individuals being arrested for various violations of Florida State Statute 893, which is the controlled drug statute. Primarily, 2 of the individuals named, that I'll name here in a second, sold drugs to undercover detectives on the property of 305 South Safford Avenue. Consequently, as I stated in the definition of the ordinance earlier, it's a violation of state law, and I'm before the board, 1, to have them established for any future violations of 8-40, which deal with criminal activity on the property. On July 21st as well, we mailed out a notice of violation and a notice of hearing. It was mailed first class, return receipt requested and certified. July 26th, the notice of violation and notice of hearing, certified receipt were returned to the office with signatures. I posted the property on July 27th. I did speak to the owner, the manager, Antoine Winthrop, advised him what the situation was. He assured us that he would take care and make sure the 2 people didn't come back on the property. I also explained to him that he has to curtail any future violations because if the board does establish him under this, that any future violations of similar statute or that ordinance would be considered a repeat violator. So specifically, on March 22nd of this year, a male named Antoine Blanche was charged with sale and possession of cocaine under the Sheriff's Office case number SO17-88811. Again, the next day on March 23rd, Antoine Blanche had another charge of sale and possession of cocaine under the same case number to 2 undercover detectives. On April 27th of 2017, Antoine Blanche was actually arrested at the location for possession of cocaine. And on May 10th, 2017, another individual, Reader's Current, was arrested at the above location for sale and possession of cocaine. So those are the 2 individuals that were arrested or sold drugs on the property of 305 South Safford. So I'd like the board to find the owner in violation of 8-40, allowing the criminal activity to occur. And I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Does anyone have any questions for the officer? I have a question then. Are these 2 people that you cited, were they living at that location?
305 South Safford is a business. It's a barbecue stand, more or less. It's kind of a bar type area. So there's numerous individuals that have been around there, but it's not a residence. And
just so that I fully understand what your intent is, you are asking the board to establish this as a violation?
Yes, sir, to understand that it occurred, and then 1, to have the board basically order those 2 individuals no longer be allowed on the property, and any further similar offenses would be considered a repeat violation for that property. So if the owner allows basically drugs to be sold on his property again, he would be a repeat violator.
Okay, but again, what you're asking the board to do is to establish this piece of property as a violation.
Correct.
All right.
Under 8-40, yes, sir.
Do any of the other board members have any questions for the officer?
Officer Gaffney, what is the intersection?
I'm sorry? It's the spot at Boyer and Safford. The little old barbecue stand that's on the southeast corner of Boyer and Safford, the spot.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah,
I
okay.
can't remember what it used to be. Bill's Barbecue Shop, I think it used to
Oh,
be.
yeah. Oh,
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I will.
Go ahead, please.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts in the law that at the time of the alleged violation, section 17-80000,
That's the case number.
That's the case
excuse-
number. Look below that, please.
excuse me,
That's all right.
code 8-40 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
that's the-
Do we have a motion in a second?
Second?
I second.
Any
Staff
second?
second, yes.
Okay. Before we go to discussion, I just want to ask, are they now in compliance?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay, because that was not added in the motion. That's the usual wording, I believe, is that,
First, we have to say that they violated, then we can say.
well, I'm not sure, I want to debate it with you, but if you look at the examples that we have that indicate the establishment of a violation, the motion, the wording that
Oh, yeah.
in our guideline says, however, they are now in compliance. So that's the only reason that I'm questioning that, okay? Whether
You want to say
whether
they're
it's,
now in compliance, first you have to find them in violation before you can say they're now complying, don't you?
Julie, the second page, is that the one you read
No,
from? The second page is actually the one for
establish a violation
establishing.
first,
Yeah.
so I need to withdraw my motion.
well, not necessarily. I just wanted to point it out that it wasn't the wording that, at least is, in my experience, I was familiar with. But the motion is fine the way it is. And we have a second. Can we have any discussion? Does anybody care to bring up any point in regards to this before we vote on it? Apparently, there's no need for discussion. I would ask the secretary for a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yeah.
Ms. Vacacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, moving down along the list of cases for today, we go to number 4, which is 17-800000372, and the address is 315 East Tarpon Avenue. Is there anyone here for 315 East Tarpon Avenue? All right, if you'd step up, please.
We need to find out who the property owner is on all those people.
Yeah, of the three of you, who's the property owner? Pardon? Okay. Okay, so we have Wanda and John Hubble. Well, let me just make sure with the attorney. Is that,
Yeah, so we need the property owner, and if the property owner wishes, you're not the property owner any longer. If the property owner wishes to call you as a witness, then she can call you as a witness. But the property owner needs to be the one up there responding to these code violations.
Tom, Mr. Trask, they're both still listed on property appraiser. It's
Oh, they
John
both
and
are?
Wanda Hubble still together.
okay, well, then they can both answer
Yeah.
since they're both cited.
Okay. Sir, you may want to get up there and look at those exhibits then too. Okay, any objections to the exhibits coming into evidence? Ma'am, do you have any objections to those documents coming into evidence? What- Once you review them.
I haven't
Yeah, once you
looked
review them.
yet, but, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, you,
Hopefully,
This-
the officer will be able to explain what the violations are.
and I can tell them what's been done, what I've corrected?
Yes, you're gonna, the way this is gonna go down is the officer's gonna testify, you're gonna have an opportunity to question him, then you're gonna have an opportunity to present your side, and he's gonna have an opportunity to ask you any questions he has.
Okay.
Okay? Right now, we just wanted to determine if you take any exception to the exhibits, or they become a part of the record.
No, not, where is that? Oh, okay. Not sure what that is. Okay, all right. Can you say?
Any objections, ma'am?
No, that's
right,
all.
then.
Go ahead.
Officer Gasson, if you're ready, you may proceed.
Thank you. Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department.
Hold on a
Code
second, Steve.
Enforcement.
I want to get these documents moving. I don't know who he is. Is he your witness?
Son,
Okay.
I have epilepsy, and he always has to be where I am, and if I have
Sir,
a
you need to look through those really quickly. I need to pass them down through for the dais. So as soon as you're done, then we can go ahead and get started. Okay.
Thanks for
Well,
stopping
this
me.
is what he already gave me, right?
No.
Yeah, okay. What, yeah, I have, there are two main questions. Okay, both of those are correct. I just maybe needed correct. A jump car on the inside pathway to walk through the house.
All right, I believe we can move along now.
I can't read this fast.
I'm sorry, I thought that the,
Still looking at some of them, I guess.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought she said she didn't have a problem. You're still looking at the exhibit?
This paper.
That's fine, go ahead.
Cannot take any time to read them.
That's a computerized case summary that has everything that's happened in the case so far.
Just. Do I need to read all of this, every word?
That's up to you, I can't.
Well, I can't take the time to read it all, can I? I've tried to do, as much.
The property appraiser record.
Where?
This is who we send the notices to the owner on record. That's a copy of the property appraiser.
And so how much is it?
No, that's just a record of the owner.
I can't read all this. Can we talk in
In a moment. And then number 4 is just saying that the officer has signed an affidavit that he posted a sign and he never does it.
Oh,
He posted the sign, and then that's the copy of the sign that was in your yard. It's okay.
Just had an opportunity to look through all the exhibits.
I have, one,
I'm sorry, ma'am, you gotta speak up. Are you speaking to the,
Which one?
to the board or to your son?
this one,
Okay.
this one?
Yes.
I
have, when the officer was there before, I had, there's 2 trucks in the back, and
Ma'am, right now, you can't testify. Okay, you're gonna have an opportunity to testify. The way this works is, once you approve of the exhibits, we can move along. The officer is gonna testify and present the city's position. Then you'll have the opportunity to question him, and you'll also have the opportunity then to respond to the charges. And at that time, you can explain whatever evidence you'd like to present. We'll be glad to listen to it.
Okay,
Okay?
it's okay, Mom.
But you need to sit down.
Do we need to
She's
have her
epileptic,
sit?
and this really jacks up the nervous system, so to
Let her
speak.
sit down.
Yeah, please, sit down. I'd rather you sit down than be in any type of
Here we go.
distress.
It's okay. Let's go right here.
Sit over here.
I can't.
Okay.
Medical attention?
Okay, I think we might want to
People that
consider a recess in
having
this
a
particular
seizure?
proceeding.
She's having a seizure.
Brad?
Just wait, give her a second.
I'll be out. Oh, right. And, yeah.
Are you ready to listen to?
Just listen to him, honey.
They're saying go ahead.
Go ahead.
What are you giving her, just out of curiosity? I'm just, because I was a paramedic, so I kind of understand the stuff a little bit.
It's a melatonin oil.
Okay, so it's not a prescribed medicine?
No.
She have seizures?
Yes.
She about to have one?
What?
You having an aura or anything? Are you about to have a seizure?
She's having a little bit of one. It's coming on.
She had a
Right. She starts to have one. I'm calling the paramedics. I don't care what you can say. Just understand that, okay? It's not open for discussion. Just saying, okay? If she starts to have one and I can tell she's having one, the paramedics are coming and we're not going to argue about it. So, okay.
She's saying proceed, let's proceed.
Ma'am, are you able to proceed?
Yeah,
You sure?
I'll be all right. Yes,
in the go.
it takes a few.
All right.
Nervous
All right.
system.
Go ahead, officer.
All right, as stated, Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. Case before the board is 17-8000372. Property address listed as 315 East Tarpon Avenue. Specifically, this address seems to have been split also into 313 East Tarpon Avenue, although the property appraiser doesn't acknowledge 313 as a separate address, but it seems to be a rear apartment. Exhibit number 1 going before the board are all the photos, include the initial inspection photographs, the final inspection, and the posted sign. All the notices are exhibit number 2 to include the notice of violation and the notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative docs, including a case summary, property appraiser and tax collector's records, and any emails that I may have had. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. Should be noted for the board that all notices were mailed to the owner of record via Pinellas County Property Appraiser and Tax Collector's website and/or database. Beginning of this case was June 24th of this year. Conducted initial inspection based on a neighbor complaint. I drove through the alley. This is an address on Tarpon Avenue on the north side of the road that's accessible via an alley in between Tarpon and Orange. The rear door of the property has a listed address of 313, but as I stated, it appears that 315 has been converted into 2 units. I drove into the rear alley. There was a large amount of trash, clutter, and debris. There's appliances, including ones with doors still affixed to them. There was pallets. There appears to be a shed with no permit, because I confirmed via the city computer system that no permit was pulled for a shed recently. And it's also too close to the fence, so it's in violation as well. And then the fence itself is in poor condition. On June 26th, the notice of violation was mailed first class and certified mail. I conducted a reinspection on July 13th of this year, and there was no change, and at that point it was set to go before this board. July 17th of this year, the notice of hearing was mailed first class and certified mail. On July 26th, the notice of violation was returned to our office. The envelope was unopened and obviously unsigned for. July 27th, I posted the property. And then on August 9th, I conducted my final inspection. The property's still not in compliance. As you can see from the photographs, there's still 2 white Ford pickup trucks with no tags on them. One of the other vehicles, which I believe maybe the Jaguar, was placed under a car cover. I'm unable to tell the status of the gold Ford pickup truck in the pictures, or the Ford pickup truck that's backed in, whether or not it has valid registration or not. Also, it appears that fence sections were added, and there does not seem to be a permit that was pulled for those additional fence sections. And then behind those fence sections, they're masking large piles of fence sections, pallets, and other trash that I was clearly able to see in my line of sight. If you look in the pictures, you can see towards the end, the pile, I was actually able to see it between the gaps in the fence. That was off to the eastern side. And then there's a close-up picture of your photograph should show it looks like white PVC fencing. It's stacked up on top of some other debris in the yard, and that was clearly in my vision from the alleyway. And then the final photograph is just showing all the fence sections kind of lined up. I know it's zoomed in kind of close, but those are a bunch of fence sections that are just stored behind a makeshift fence. So at this point, I'd like the board to consider they're still in violation for Section 8-22, which is the accumulation of trash, Section 8-40, which is the nuisance condition of maintenance of private property, 8-52, the nuisance prohibitions, which includes debris, which is a general definition of a large number of things, including pallets and large trash, appliances, unused items, things like that. Specifically, City Ordinance 12-3, which is a restriction against airtight containers, which defines dryers, washing machines, refrigerators, and so on and so forth, being on this property because it's an attractive hazard and a nuisance and dangerous. It's also a violation of Florida state statute to have that appliance on the property. It's a misdemeanor offense. Continuing on, Section 3603 for fences, walls, and hedges being in a poor, dilapidated condition. And then finally, violations of 40.00, which are the inoperable vehicles. Either those vehicles are inoperable or do not contain a current Florida registration. And that's all I have for the board at this time.
All right. I'm going to give you the first opportunity, Mrs. Hubble. Do you have any questions for the officer? You don't need to stand. You can remain seated. Just speak up, though, please.
Just getting there.
On the vehicles, the 2 pickup trucks.
Right now, you have to ask questions. Okay? Do you have any questions that you want to ask them? Not. You can't give testimony right now, but right now you can ask questions.
Which is the,
Well, wait, do you have any questions? No, anything you'd like to ask him?
just ask them, say like, do I need to do this, or what do I need for that, or how do we resolve this matter?
I've been trying to do as much as I can. I'm 77 years old. I'm by myself.
I've got to interrupt you, ma'am. And I don't want to cause you distress, but we have to be in due form.
I have a question.
All right, Mr. Hubble, then you can ask the question.
Which brush along the fence line are you talking about?
I'm sorry, what?
The brush on the fence?
Brush?
Yeah, on the sign says there's one of the violations is brush along the fence line.
Well, I think it got covered up by the additional new fence, so I couldn't see it anymore.
All right, well, I trimmed back the bushes along the road part where the sign was.
852 covers a myriad of things, including maintenance of your property and storage of debris. So you can have one thing but still have another violation under that ordinance.
On the vehicles, they're supposed to be towed away already. The man is in the hospital, but it's been supposed to be towed away.
Ma'am, I have to interrupt you again. And again, and maybe your son can explain to you, I'm not trying to cause you any distress by stopping you, but right now you have to ask questions, not give testimony.
I think he said he just did that.
Can I have any more time to help correct whatever else it is I'm still in violation of? And can I show him where I had, the one reason that the tags was off of one vehicle, I had it to go to my insurance and DMV to get a new tag and a transfer off of one onto the other. Do I have any more time, or is that still in violation if they haven't, the man that is supposed to pick both of those pickup trucks up, can I have more time on?
Okay, as far as time goes, as of right now, that's going to be something that's going to have to be decided by the board at the end of this hearing, as far as additional time. So directly, I can't give you any more time. And as far as your registrations go, you have to present me, we would have to present the actual paper, because that tag could go on anything.
No,
So, and then you can present that as part of your testimony, and we can consider it.
I have it in my purse.
Okay.
Right, changed everything. And what, I don't know what I'm supposed to do or not do, where I put I got fencing, which I was going to ask if I need to put some up, can I put it there? And
Obtain a permit.
I know, honey, but I meant, I have to put it somewhere till I can get it put up. You know, get somebody to help me put it up. It's just, it's only been there, 3-4 days.
I'm guessing your question is there something you can do about the fencing until you're able to get a permit to put it up legally?
Yes.
Again, if the board finds you a violation and they decide to give you a period of time, it'll be that period of time. Otherwise, no, you can't store it on your property. That's one of the specific violations.
How do you put it up if you can't have it on your property to put it up? I don't understand.
I can't answer that question for you, ma'am, and how you decide to do that. That's a logistical issue on your part.
Well,
But it's been there for many years.
no, not this,
Okay.
New fence. Not that, because I only just got it this past week. The one, that's leaning up on the,
Yeah, you need to obtain a permit, ma'am.
yes, I know
Okay.
that, but I mean, you know, since I got the fence, and some posts, but I have to have somebody that can come and help me put it up if I need to put it up any other. And, on the refrigerator, my
But
house has.
I have to stop you, ma'am, because now you're not asking questions,
Well,
you're
yes,
testifying.
I want to ask him.
Well, then,
if
make it
my-
into a question.
If my
Form
house.
your
if
statements
my-
as a question.
If my house was built and it has 29-inch doors, and if I have a 36-inch refrigerator and I can't put it inside my house, where am I supposed to put it? Because it's full of food, not empty or,
What
where-
she's basically saying is the refrigerator's wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to get it in your house, ma'am, but unfortunately.
I'm gonna get rid of it. I'm gonna
Okay.
get rid of the refrigerator no matter what.
Okay.
Any other questions at this time? You're gonna get a chance to testify very shortly, but right now, questions. Any other questions?
What all do you want me, do I need to do to correct this?
Well, all the fence material has to be gone within a prescribed period of time that we will probably discover at the end of this hearing.
Okay.
The fence that you put up without a permit you need to obtain a permit for it. The shed that's on your property that was placed without a permit needs to be obtained. The vehicles need to be removed or registered and or operable. Current registration, not with an expired tag, but a current tag. And then the refrigerator needs to be removed and stored elsewhere.
Okay.
And then basically make sure your yard's mowed, the trash is cleaned up, there's no clutter or debris.
Okay. I have paperwork on the vehicle.
Okay,
And
but-
I'll
but
stop
right
you on
now,
the
again,
vehicles only
any
because
questions?
Can the city help me in any way, like to move the refrigerator, or can I get any help like that?
I believe he just offered to help you.
What?
I'll move the refrigerator.
All
The city doesn't specifically have any method to do that, ma'am, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
If I may,
Well, I put you know, put a thing on the handles for right now until I can get it out of there. The trucks they're gone, they're history. They should have been gone by this last weekend up until even today. So I don't know how.
Okay, again, though, you're testifying. You have to ask questions.
Mrs.
You have any
Hubble,
more questions?
Mrs. Hubble,
Listen to her.
what you are trying to do is explain that you have already fixed some of the problems. Okay, we aren't to that point yet. So when we get done making our determination, after that's done, you can show the officer, not during the meeting, but later, that you have already taken care of that issue. And we're going to, after we make a determination of if you are in violation, we are going to determine how long you have to fix the violation. And at that time, the city can tell you everything that you need to do again to make the place come into compliance. And we're not going to do it, we're not going to make you do it in a couple of days. We're going to give you time. So I don't want you to be excited and upset over this, okay?
My son, I only have my son when I can get him. If he's out fishing for 2 or 3 weeks,
Just
I
let it
have
do her
nobody.
Right.
I don't have any.
You will have enough time. We'll make sure that you have enough time, okay?
I want to do whatever it is you need me to do.
Yeah.
Much as I
We'll
can
make
do.
sure you know everything that you need to do.
Okay.
So, and if you don't have any more questions for the officer, that's not a rule that you have to even ask any questions. So we can go ahead and,
Thanks for stepping up, Wanda.
Questions from the board?
Does anybody on the board have any questions for the officer? Or for Officer Gasson? Anybody?
Yes. Trying to figure out how to say it. But there was good fence on top of bad fence, and I don't know how else to question that. There was like piles of.
Yeah, there's piles of fencing. You can see from the first photographs there appeared to be some fencing that was falling over and stuff. And then the problem is in the second photographs there was fencing placed in front of it, so I really can't look at the fencing behind it to see if it got fixed. It was terrible English, sorry. If it had been fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in fairness, I just want to make sure, because we have 2 people listed. Mr. Hubble, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask the officer? Anything else? No, okay. Let's go on. Anybody else in the board? I have a question for you then, Officer Gasson. As far as these airtight containers,
Yes, sir.
okay, I'm a bit concerned. I've lived in other areas where the door had to be off of a refrigerator. Are any of these pose a potential? Because that to me is far more troubling than many of the other things I hear about here.
It is by state statute. The doors are supposed to be removed. It appears that it's being used, so it's plugged in.
Okay.
And also, kind of where it's located is a little less of an attractive nuisance because it's right off of her back porch.
Okay.
But it's not secured behind a fence. It's still more or less open. It's not. And other situations where they're out curbside or something like that is much more disturbing.
Okay, so
much more dangerous.
It doesn't meet that threshold then.
It technically falls under the statute, yes, but the totality of the circumstances make it a little less extreme,
Okay,
if
that's
that makes any sense.
understandable. Okay, I understand. All right, I'm not sure whether you, Mr. Hubble, want to present your position first, or Mrs. Hubble wants to present her position.
I just found out today what was going on.
Sir, you can stand up and get to the microphone. It's a lot easier for us to hear that way. You can do that. Thank you.
I just found out today what was going on, and I live over at Penn Street,
We're divorced, but I'll do what I can to help out. And I read the sign, which was laying down flat in the grass, and it said something about trimming the bushes back. So I did trim the bushes back on the highway side of the fence. And Wanda says one of her neighbors likes the bushes coming across the fence because he hides his trash cans behind them to keep them out of sight. The blue house?
The greenhouse.
The greenhouse, the house on towards 19 is the people that like the
Anything else you'd like
bushes.
to add, Mr. Hubble?
No, I'm just, if you give her a chance to get some of the stuff cleaned up, I'm off work Saturday, I can haul the refrigerator off, and we'll get that taken care of right away.
Then, Mrs. Hubble, and you can remain seated, okay? If I don't want to cause you any more distress, but you'll need to speak up nice and loud if you care to. Now, there were times when I stopped you from talking. Now you can present your side of the case.
Concerning the two trucks that were in the back there, that are Ford Rangers, they have, someone has bought them, they were supposed to get them, supposed to pick them up, tow them away. The owner of the towing company is in England, he's had a heart attack. The other person who's running the tow truck place was supposed to come from Sunday, Monday, up until yesterday, up until this morning. And had to go to, I don't know, some emergency, something's wrong with him. Because I've called and they keep saying, but anyway, at the time that the little white truck, at the time that I believe he put I got the notice, the reason the tag was off of that was I had taken it to my car insurance and to the DMV it was legitimate then at the white truck at that one time. I took it to the DMV and my insurance to take the tag off of that to transfer it over onto the Jaguar. This is now the Jaguar, and I have all the paperwork. This is now the Jaguar's tag. That was mine. I just got a brand new. What?
Just tell me you have the paperwork.
I had to get, I guess my gold truck. I didn't know, but they said it was 10 years old, and they gave me a new one, a brand new one. So the number is different, but it has the 718 on it, which is on the truck right now. And it was backed up because we were hauling trash and stuff off the past few days. The blue and white truck was, I couldn't drive all of them. I couldn't keep insurance on all of them. So it was expired, but I had somebody that was supposed to buy it, and they keep, yes, I'm gonna, and no, I'm not, and then they don't, how that goes. Yes, so it was just sitting there. So those two will be removed. There was a dryer that belonged to someone else. The person who lived next door was in my yard. That's been removed. All those on the corner in the alley where you see an L-shaped piece of fence up, that trash has been removed. I didn't see that stuff that's on whatever's on top of that shed. That shed came with the house. I didn't put it there, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that. I mean, or if I have to do anything about it. That's the way it was when I got the house. And let me see. The fence, I just got fence because he said I needed to replace fence or put it up. I just got it this past week. It's leaning up against, the wall to stand there until I can get the post and the fence in place. We're in a permit, wherever, if he says I have to put it, I was gonna put it all the way across the back where I park my truck. So whatever, if there is, the refrigerator will be gone, whatever's in the way there will be gone. I just have, chairs and tables and flowers on the back gate, you know, where, in the back of the house. But anything, if you can see it over that fence, I'll remove whatever it is. I didn't have any help or anybody to help me get it done, in this, time, you know, this time frame. Especially the trucks, I'll get them off there if I have to tow it. Well, I won't tow it, but I'll have my son tow
He'll
it.
take care of it.
And where they're supposed to go. And if I get rid of the refrigerator and whatever you can see, and I put a fence right across my backyard, and I clean up whatever, on the one side there on that corner, I cleaned all that up. I'll get rid of the fence that's on the other side, the stack of fence, because it's old, it's been there for, I don't know, it's been there forever. I was gonna try to get it, put it up, but, it's in bad shape. It's just a matter of, you know, it was there and it's been there and not moving it, you know, but if I have to move it, then I'll move the whole thing, and create as much of a, you know, a clean space, whatever it is I would have to do. I want to do it. And the refrigerator, I've had my food stolen out of that, about $500-600 worth of meat out of the freezer. So anyway, I couldn't get the refrigerator in the house because I have 29-inch doors, and you know, I had.
I'll get a permit, we'll put a fence around the place.
No, I'm getting rid of the refrigerator, whatever's there.
You still need a refrigerator.
Okay, anything else, ma'am?
If I have another refrigerator, because we can't live out of a little bitty tiny refrigerator. I just can't put my food in there that,
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but apparently, based on the testimony of the officer, you're gonna have to come up with some type of solution, because the present, situation is in violation of the city's code.
yes, I'm willing to do that, whatever it is. If
Well,
he-
you'll have to resolve the refrigerator
Yes.
issue.
He just said he'd help move
All
it.
right.
So that'll be done. What else is there? I mean, okay, that fence, that'll be gone. Whatever, I didn't know what was on top of that shed, because I didn't see that high. But whatever's there, I'll remove that. If I'd have seen it, I'd already taken that off. Anything, whatever I need to do, I'm willing to try to do it.
Okay.
You know, just if they can give me time, and so I can get help from.
Okay, well, as my fellow board member pointed out, that if in fact the allegations are proven, then we'll set a certain amount of time to give you to resolve the issues. So, at this time, anything else you'd like to add before we go on?
I don't know.
There's no need to go over things, but if there's anything new, we'll be glad to listen to it.
I don't know. The house is it's a duplex. It was split in half. The mail still comes two-sided, even though it's back to one structure. You know, as a door goes from one side to the other side, there wasn't before. It was made into a duplex and cut in half. So, and it was rented out before, both sides, and we lost our home in the flood and had to move there, and then ended up having to buy that because had no place else to go. So that's how come we ended up in that house at the time. And you know, that's just we're being.
All right, then. I'm going to ask Officer Gasson, do you have any questions for Mrs. Hubble?
Yeah, just one. How long is it gonna take you to clean it up?
You and I can only be here when I can be here. 60 days, 60, 90 days.
3 months.
Okay.
That's not
I'm
gonna
only,
work.
I'm only here
He's the only one.
every 2
Okay,
weeks.
that's, just 60 to 90 days was your answer, thank you. All I need to know.
Okay. Do any of the people on the board care to ask Ms. Hubble any questions?
Are you an owner of that property, or are you just the renter of that unit?
I've just become the owner since after June 2nd. I've only just become owner of it June 2nd of this year.
And so where you are living, that was split and turned into 2 units before you
Oh, yes.
took
yes,
ownership.
That's the way it was when we lost our home in a flood and had to move there because the police and the fire said you have to go somewhere.
Okay.
And my son and someone else was renting there at the time, so they let us come and stay there because it was either that or go to the
Right.
what do you call it, shelter?
Right, but
Red Cross. So that's how we ended up there at the time. And then we signed a lease to rent it for a year. And as soon as we signed that, then the landlady that owned it said, oh, well, no, she wanted to sell it. I didn't know if I had the right to fight the year lease or not. So not having any place else to go, I says, I guess, we just have to buy the house. So it's we're kind of forced into buying it to have a place to live, even though, without any looking around or whatever. That's what was there, and that's what we took at the time. And then it that's, so we have, it's a duplex, but it's one-sided, I guess.
Okay.
But they still use 2 addresses. I don't know why.
Okay. Thank you.
No other questions, Wanda?
No.
No. Does anyone have any further questions?
The complaint.
Can I ask who filed the complaint?
I don't know that the officer will be able to answer that for you.
It was a
I don't know.
neighbor,
Can you tell me which neighbor?
somebody named Subic.
The owner of the property that I was just talking about, where the manager, where we were cutting palm fronds and along the hedge. I was just there with him this morning. He's the manager of the property. The owner doesn't live in this country, and he owns that house, and he owns the one across the street by where they make wine, right off the corner, the second house off of Gross on the other side of the street. And he said that I asked him, I said, did you make any complaint against me? And he said, absolutely not. And my neighbor in the back, she just gives me some fig trees and all kinds of plants and begged me please, and she'd be the first one to get mulberries off my tree. I know the neighbors that just bought that house next door, that yellow, what's his name?
Okay, but right now, what you're doing is, it could be considered as testimony, okay? So, I don't know that what you're presenting is pushing your case along, or I'm not sure what application it has to any decision that we might have to make.
It really has no footprint, Mom.
Okay, does anybody have any further questions for either the officer or either of the Hubbles, either Mr. or Mrs. Hubble? All right.
I would like to ask you a question, and this is just kind of for my information. I'm assuming that
And Wanda, would you please speak up for the benefit of
sorry.
the people on the other end?
I'm assuming that when they cut that in half and made 2 units out of it, that they didn't get a permit, because how wide is that door that the refrigerator won't fit through? Isn't
couldn't-
there codes?
That'd be a building department thing, and it's not in my area of expertise.
Okay.
Any need for further discussion in this case before we ask for a motion? Apparently not. Does anybody care to make a motion in this case?
I will.
Go ahead then, please.
I move based on testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, 12-3, 36.03, and 40.00 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondents were in violation thereof.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any need for discussion before we go to a voice vote? Then I would ask the secretary for a roll call vote.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vacacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer? Yes. Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to the penalty phase, but before we do that, I would turn to Officer Gasson and ask, does the city have any suggested penalties in regards to the case that we're hearing?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing of note, we looked up and looked at the title deed was, the property was sold in 2012 to Ms. Hubble. So it's been 5 years, her property, according to the Pinellas County title or the warranty deed. But along with that, she's made significant strides since June. I would probably say she's greater than 75% done. With that being said, I personally feel that probably somewhere around the tune of 30 days is reasonable to finish up what she has to do. The city typically will issue a fence permit in less than a week. For the most part, they're usually walk-through permits, so they're easy to obtain. We've already discussed the refrigerator, which is probably the most pressing issue. I don't necessarily know if the order can be split out, where a shorter time period could be for the fridge. I think that since we've spent 2 months on this and she's been noticed, somewhere to the tune of 7 days is probably reasonable for the refrigerator. Everything else, I would say 30 days. And then as far as the fine goes, I would go along the lines of like $25 a day.
Appreciate the opinion that you've expressed. Do we need to discuss this, or can I ask my fellow board members for a motion? I'm sorry.
You need, they have the opportunity to respond to that. to the
Oh, I'm
penalty,
sorry.
you know, the
I
penalty phase.
stand corrected. Anything that you'd like to present? You've heard the officer indicate what he felt the penalty should be. Anything you'd like to add?
Does that mean if I don't finish what I'm supposed to do, then I'll be penalized? Is that what that
That's
means?
correct.
Oh, okay.
And that would be, he suggested $25 a day, so
If I don't do what
that's correct.
Okay, and if I, with the fence or part of it, if I get, can I get any more time if I can't finish it in that time? Because he's gone, 2 and 3 weeks at a time, so.
Well, let me ask you, and I'm going to direct this to the son, I guess.
Yes.
How much time would you apparently would help your mother
I know that's
accomplish this if you had the time? How much time do you suggest? Because we're open to at least an opinion. How much time do you need so that we would know that this fence situation has been rectified?
I'd feel comfortable with 60 days, sir.
60 days. All right.
Between my in and out of town work.
We need his name. He didn't
Yeah,
tell us.
can we, just for the record, Mr. Trask has pointed out, we haven't had your name. I'd like to have it on the record, please.
I'm George Green.
George Green.
Yes, sir.
And is there an E on the end, or is it just Greene?
Yes, Green, the
Okay.
name.
George Green. Thank you, George.
Well,
All right.
We want to separate, or we just cite that.
If you do want to separate the motion
That's
out,
up to- that's up to
up to the
whoever makes
maker
the
of the
motion.
motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody care to make a motion in this case?
I'll do it again.
Okay.
I move that the respondent shall have until, we want to do 10 days for the refrigerator. We are on
Today's August the 10th.
10th. Have until August 24th to bring the property into compliance with code section 12-3, or suffer a fine of $50 a day thereafter the respondent remain in violation of said code section. That's the refrigerator part.
I'll get rid of the refrigerator.
Okay, we don't need a response, but I'll ask the board member to continue with her motion.
She just wants to do them
Oh, you
separately.
want, okay, I didn't realize that you wanted two separate motions. All right. Any need to discuss before, do we have a second, first
How
of all?
far off?
All right, so I just want to make sure I understand what's going on. So this first motion
Only
is
regard
only
to
for
12
NX 12-3, and that's to get the refrigerator out of there by the 24th, which
2
is
weeks.
2 weeks. Okay, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to have any discussion, or can we go to a vote? Apparently, we can go to a vote. I'd ask the secretary for a roll call vote
Ms.
in regards
Wade?
to this motion.
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Vacacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes. All right. In regards to the second motion, or the need for a second motion, in regards to the other allegations, does anybody care to make a motion in regards to the remaining code?
I'll go again.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Julie.
Okay. And I'd like to point out, I'm hoping that all of my fellow board members, want to take part in the proceeding. So I just want to point that out. I'll take a motion from any of my fellow board members, but go ahead. You may proceed.
Okay. I move that the respondent shall have until September 20th, 6 weeks, to bring the property into
Well,
compliance.
excuse me, before you continue, the suggestion by the city, was 30. The, Mr. Green has indicated 60.
She's
So-
splitting the difference.
You may want to just consider that,
I did.
okay? Then go on then, please.
Well,
With code sections 8-22, 8-40, 8-52, 36-03, and 40-00, or suffer a fine of $20 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Okay, we've got a motion. Anybody want to second it?
I'm allowed to do stuff.
Pardon me? I can't hear you.
Am I allowed to do a substitute vote?
Well, we have to vote on this motion first. Does anybody want to second this motion? Okay, we've got a motion, and it's not seconded,
But failed.
so we'll have to consider it as a failed motion. Hey, does anybody want to present a alternative motion?
I will.
Go ahead.
I move that the respondent shall have until October the 10th to bring the property, everything else into compliance with the code sections, 3603, 40-00, and 8-52, 8-40, 8-22, or suffer a fine of $25 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remain in violation of the city code.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? In regards to this motion, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vacacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. DeMossis?
Yes. Motion passed.
I think we're missing on this vote. Sir, did you vote?
No, I haven't been voting the whole time. You have a quorum of 4 or more.
I'm only missing one.
My assumption is that I'm an alternate.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So,
And I'm missing one regular member.
yeah, so sir, you're on the board today, even as an alternate. So you should be voting on every one of these motions. And,
I apologize. I thought my alternate would replace the person that wasn't in place. I'm sorry.
so the alternate steps up into the vacant spot, since we don't have 7 members here.
That's right. I'm sorry, I forgot
Okay,
about
it doesn't
that.
have anything to do with the quorum. Once we make the quorum, we can have the meeting. So, okay, so, sir, you're gonna need to vote on that, whether or not you agree with the motion. And, the only motion now that you're voting on is this last one, since the other one's already done and gone, but, so, whether or not you agree with the violations, 822, 840, 852, 3603, 40, give a compliance date of October 10th, and vote, and if they fail to come into compliance by that date, $25 a day fine. So far, there's been a 5-0 vote. Do you vote in favor of it as well? Okay. Okay, so we need to make sure on the
Correct.
rest of the votes. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I didn't pick it up on the other ones, but
I-
you're awful silent down there.
Well, you know, alternates are supposed to be silent unless called upon.
Yeah, well, you're called upon, that's why you're sitting there, so.
All right.
Oh, thank you.
So this case is off.
Yes, we can move on to the next
All right,
case.
we're gonna move on to the next case.
She needs to, you probably ought to go over what,
You want me to summarize,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you, Wanda, again. Go ahead.
Okay,
if you would.
so we're going to summarize this for you. So you've been found in violation of section 12-3. That's the refrigerator code section. You're given until August 24th to bring the property into compliance. Should you fail to bring the property into compliance by that day by getting rid of the refrigerator, you're going to be fined $50 a day. In addition to that, you've been found in violation of the other code sections, 822, 840, 852, 3603, and 40.00. You're given until October 10th to bring those into compliance. Should you fail to bring those into compliance by October 10th, you're going to be fined an additional $25 a day. Do you understand all that?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
There will be an order prepared. You'll receive it in about 10 days. If you have any questions, though, you can contact Mr. Gaston, Officer Gaston, and he'll be able to answer your questions after the meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next case. It's 17-80000-379. It's FL Bayshore Parcel 11-27-15-87786-021-020. And at this time, now, we're going to have to go on with this case at this time, ma'am.
No, not right now.
You have to wait until the end of the proceeding. I suggest perhaps you call him tomorrow.
That's okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Green. Okay, let's proceed. Officer, well, apparently there's no one here for this particular case. Officer Gaston, if you're ready with the
Thank you.
city's
Officer Steve
position.
Gaston, City of Tarpon Springs Code Enforcement Officer. This case before the board is 17-800000379. It's a vacant lot, the northeast corner of Bayshore and Sunset, owned by Vasilios and Marie Konstantas. And it's before the board to be established. It's currently in compliance. Exhibit number 1 were the initial photographs of the initial inspection and the posted sign. Exhibit number 2 that's being presented before the board are all of my notices, including the notice of violation and the notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are the administrative documents, including the case summary and property and tax collector records. And exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and the copy of the sign. I've had contact with the owner, the aunt, and another person who I know is a family member. The owners of the property actually live out of state, but it's maintained somewhat locally. Also, for the record, if I could have all those exhibits placed into evidence once they've made
Yes,
their
I'd
rounds,
ask the
sir.
secretary as the exhibits are passed down, if you please gather and make them a part of the record. Go ahead, officer.
Thank you. All of my notices are mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraisers Database and the Pinellas County Tax Collector Database. The initial case started on June 24th of this year. The lot was overgrown, has trash dumped on it. It's a vacant lot. There's no house on it. On June 27th of this year, the notice of violation was mailed first class and certified mail. On July 6th, the notice of violation certified receipt was received in the code office with a signed green card. I conducted a reinspection on July 15th. It's still not been cleaned up or mowed. I did receive a call from Goldie Parr, who's a relative of the family. She's requesting a little bit more time, so I extended her reinspection until a later date. Received another phone call from Goldie around July 26th. On July 27th, the property still hadn't been in compliance, and I posted it for the board case. And on August 8th, I conducted a reinspection, and it is in compliance at this point in time. There were some priors on the property, hence the reason I'm bringing it before the board to be established. So at this time, I'd like the board to consider establishing this property for violation of City Ordinance 8-40, which is a duty to maintain private property and prevent nuisance conditions. And that nuisance condition would be Section 8-52, which is a requirement to mow and clear your lot. Should be noted, this lot is over 10,000 square feet, but it had been previously completely mowed in the past by the same owner. So the requirements are that that lot be completely mowed moving forward as long as they're the owner. And I have nothing further at this time.
What was that last thing that you said, please?
Our ordinance requires that a lot over 10,000 square feet in size, if it's been completely mowed, moving forward with that same owner, it's required to be completely mowed. Otherwise, there's a condition that says it has to be mowed 30 feet back from the right-of-way and 15 feet back from the adjoining properties. But this particular property doesn't apply because it has been completely mowed.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Officer Gasson? Apparently, there are no questions for the officer. Okay. Does anybody care to make a motion in this case? This is a motion, or what is suggested is a motion to establish a violation that is now in compliance. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make it, I just can't find it.
It's the second page,
Second
I believe.
page.
I thought I had it. Finding respondents in violation.
Establish a violation. Call for a
I'll
motion.
make it. I move based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented at law that the time of the alleged violations, sections 8-40 and 8-52 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs were in full force and effect. At the time of the notice of violation, the respondents were in violation of said code sections. However, they are now in compliance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any need to discuss this? Apparently not. I would ask the secretary for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, moving on, brings us down to case number 17-8000004001506 Copper Tree. Anybody here for the Copper Tree? Apparently not. Officer, you may proceed.
Thank you. Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Code Enforcement. Case before the board is 17-800000400. Property address in question is 1506 Copper Tree Drive. The listed property owner is Annette Cadrich. The exhibits going around before the board contain photographs, which is exhibit number 1, to include my initial inspection and the posted sign. I had a technical difficulty, so I don't have a final inspection picture, but the grass is a little bit longer than the initial inspection. The second exhibit are all of my notices, including the notice violation and the notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are my administrative documents, including the case summary, property appraiser, and tax collector records, and emails related to this case. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. And Mr. Chairman, if you would enter those into evidence for the record, please.
Yes, I point out to the secretary as the exhibits are being passed down, please gather them and make them a permanent part of the record. We'll proceed.
Thank you. All of my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraisers Database and the Pinellas County Tax Collectors Database. This case started on July 4th of this year. The lot was overgrown, needs to be mowed, edged, and trimmed. Came in through an anonymous complaint from a neighbor. I conducted the inspection at that time and noted it as such. On July 10th, the notice of violation and a notice of hearing were mailed first class and certified mail. I did have numerous priors for the same violations with the same owner on the address. That's why it was immediately went to a notice of violation and a notice of hearing to be brought before this board. On July 17th of this year, a phone call from the owner who stated she was trying to find somebody to locate to take care of the property. I conducted a reinspection on July 19th of this year, and it's still not in compliance. On July 20th, a notice of violation and notice of hearing certified receipts were received in the code office with signatures on the green card. July 27th of this year, I posted the property with the sign. On August 7th of this year, we received a phone call and an email from the daughter explaining her situation. Basically, the property, I think more or less, is owned by the mother. She's a bit sick. That was also the same situation when I had the property before. Took her a while to come into compliance. Unfortunately, as I stated, it's still not in compliance at this point. And on August 9th, I conducted a final inspection yesterday, and it's still not in compliance. There's no change. So I'd like the board, one, to find that the property is in violation of City Ordinance 8-40, which is a duty to maintain private property. 8-52, the nuisance prohibitions. As I stated, I'm sorry. As I stated, it was originally to be established, but since it's not in compliance, it's just simply a case before the board.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Officer Gass?
I was unclear if this was a repeat violator.
No, it's not. This board hasn't heard this case before.
Okay.
Or this property, I'm sorry.
And it's not in compliance yet, right?
Correct.
Right now, it is not in compliance, correct?
So you're merely requesting that the board consider the establishing a violation, is that correct?
Correct. The normal case, they're in violation, and we'll set a time frame if need be and so forth.
Make a motion.
Go ahead, sir.
I move based on the testimony, the evidence, and the facts presented in the law that at this time, the alleged violation sections 840 and 852 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs is in force and effect. The respondent was in violation thereof.
Okay, any second?
Second.
Okay. Any need for discussion in this particular case? Apparently no need for discussion. I'd ask the secretary for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vacacy?
Yes.
Ms. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. Allen-Damasus?
Yes. And before we move to the penalty phase of the proceeding, I would ask the city's code enforcement inspector, Officer Gasson, any recommendation by the city in regards to suggested penalties and time limits?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I would request that the board consider 30 days to bring the property into compliance. Back to 2010, there's been 6 previous violations. There was 2 for the same problem in 2016 alone. Under the board's consideration, the mother is 95 years old. She lives out of state. Daughter's taking care of it. She's has some issues with that, trying to get a hold of somebody. But previously, in one of my 16 cases, they had a management company that was taking care of everything, and I don't know what happened with that. So, as I stated, I would request 30 days and a fine of $25 a day.
All right. Thank you for your recommendation.
Is the daughter local?
I'm sorry, the daughter?
Daughter local?
She's not local, is she? And the house is vacant.
The house is vacant.
Yeah, the house is vacant, and I don't think she's local either.
Does anybody care to make a motion in this case?
Yeah. I will do it.
Go ahead. Thank you.
I move that the respondent shall have until September 12th to bring the property into compliance with Code Section 8-40 and 8-52, or suffer a fine of $25 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remain in violation of said code section.
Okay, thank you. Any second on that?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any need for discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Why, Officer, is it that we're only giving them $25 a day? And basically, they've been not in compliance for almost 2 years.
But we're giving them 30 days to take care of the issue, and $25 a day is kind of generally where I kind of start out with, especially with the totality of the circumstances.
But this isn't a start out. This is a continuous problem.
But this is the first time the board has heard this case. Otherwise, they have come into compliance prior to being brought before the board.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussion before we go to a vote? Apparently no need. We'll ask the secretary for a roll call vote in regards to this case, please.
Mr. Weeks?
No.
Mrs. Wade?
No.
No.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Mr. Vacacy?
No.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
And Mr. DeMoss?
Yes.
Motion failed.
Okay, the motion fails.
Can we make a new motion?
Do we have any other, anybody else would like to make a motion in regards to this case?
We're gonna go back and forth with this, aren't we? I'll try one.
Not totally.
Go ahead then.
I move that the respondent shall have until the, whatever, 12th day of September to bring the property into compliance with code sections 8-40 and 8-52, or suffer a fine of $50 per day for each day thereafter the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Okay, any second?
Oh, boy.
Call for discussion?
You have to have the second
Gotta
first.
have a second first.
You want a second it for discussion purposes?
Second, for discussion purposes.
All right,
Why isn't it $100 a day? We have the ability to go up to, like, as I understand it, $400 or $500,
$250.
$250. And the problem is that this person continuously, even though we haven't heard it before, has been a problem. And the only way we can seemingly get this person's attention is by finding them an amount that will get their attention.
I had a question about the timing. That if I lived next door to them, that would be a long time for me to look at that overgrown stuff. I'd like to make the time short.
Mrs. Dabbs?
In the past, was it brought, did I understand the officer to say it was brought in compliance before?
Yes, this is the
Well,
first time
yeah.
it's coming
Yeah.
before the
Okay.
board.
The reason I didn't go any higher than that, but I did want to raise it because I agree with you that money gets attention, is that the daughter has taken over now, but also the daughter isn't living here, and I always think when they're out of town, it's out of mind. But
Well,
because
it's
this is her
long-term.
first time dealing with it, because mom was always the one who was messing up before, that the $50 might get her attention, and 30, and I agree with you. I wouldn't want to live next door to it, but I just, there's an amount of time that for notification and everything. And if she's having a hard time getting a lawn service, I wanted to give her that little time to do that as well.
Okay, any further discussion?
to be $75?
I'll stick with my 50. Because we were tied, and so I'm thinking we're going to be at a standstill if we get it way too high.
Can you
Alright.
narrow the time frame?
As I say, she's having. Did you not say that she was having trouble finding a lawn service?
That's what she says, yes.
Okay, let's do this.
It's possible.
Let's see if this motion will pass. If not, we can go back and possibly get another motion. So any further discussion in regards to the motion that we're supposed to be considering at this point? I'd ask the secretary for a roll call vote then.
Can you repeat the motion with the timing and the amount, please? Sorry.
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead, sure.
How far out of town does the daughter live?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Oh,
York.
wow.
If she lived in Palm Harbor, she might be able to get a lawn service, but New York is going to take a little more work. And as I say, I don't have any sympathy for people who own property here and don't live here. But that's okay. I don't want to change my motion.
The motion is to give them until September the 12th to come into compliance or suffer a $50 a day fine. That's the motion.
And it has been brought and seconded for discussion. We've had that discussion. Let's have the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
No.
Ms. Wade?
No.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vacacie?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. Demosas?
Yes.
Passed.
Motion carries.
Okay, it passes. Okay, that brings us to our next case, 17-800000401. That's 3 Venetian Court. Anybody here for that piece of property? Apparently not. Officer, if you're ready, you may proceed.
Officer Steve Gaston, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. Case before the board is 17-800000401. This is, it has an address at number 3 Venetian Court. Its parcel number is 12-27-15-93867-000-0010, owned by Mika and Mika Kazimers. It's a vacant lot at the corner of South North Spring and Venetian Court, across the street from the yacht club. Exhibit number 1 of the photographs to include my initial inspection, the final inspection, and the posted sign. Exhibit number 2 going before the board are all of my notices, including the notice of violation and the notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 of the administrative documents include my case summary, property appraiser and tax collector's records, and any emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. And Mr. Chairman, if you would, please, for the record, enter those into evidence once they make
Okay,
their
I
rounds.
would ask the secretary, as the exhibits are passed down, if you'd collect them and make all the exhibits a part of the record. Go ahead, officer.
Thank you. All my notices were mailed to the property owner of record as determined by the Pinellas County Property Appraisers Database and the Pinellas County Tax Collectors Database. Initially, this case started based on a neighbor complaint on July 5th of this year. I conducted an inspection. As I stated, it's a vacant lot. The lot was overgrown. There are trees were overhanging the sidewalk in the street. The lot needs to be mowed, edged, and trimmed as the grass is carrying over the sidewalk. And then any trash and debris that was on it, there's tree debris and some other waste on the property that needs to be cleaned up. On July 7th, the notice of violation and the notice of hearing were mailed first class via certified mail. There had been numerous priors on the property. On July 17th, the notice of violation and the notice of hearing certified receipts were returned to the code office with a signature on the green card. On July 25th of this year, the office received a phone call that the property was mowed. On July 27th, the sign was posted, and I conducted an inspection noting that the property was mowed, but there was still a large amount of tree debris stacked up on the eastern side of the property. You can see it in one of the last photographs. Hopefully, I think that photograph got included. The trees were trimmed above the sidewalk, so they're in compliance. It doesn't change the ordinances because they all fall under the same ordinance. And then, as I stated, I conducted a final inspection on August 9th, yesterday, and the lot was mowed, but there is still the tree debris on the western side, so technically it's still in violation. And I asked the board to consider the violation of 8-40, the duty to maintain private property, and City Code 8-52, which are the nuisance prohibitions, which deal with lot clearing, debris, trash, and mowing. And that's all I have at this time.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Officer Gass? Apparently, there's no questions. Does anybody, I'm sorry, do you have questions?
Are
Ms.
they in
Archer?
compliance now? I did.
No, they are not. All the debris from when I guess they cut the trees down, they just stacked it on the property. So that still falls under 852, where they got to clean that off, so they're not in compliance. Like I said, it's mowed, it's trimmed, the trees are trimmed, but they got to clean up their trash, basically.
Make a motion?
Go ahead, sir.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that at the time of the alleged violation, sections 840 and 852, the Code of Ordinances of the City of Tarpon Springs was in force and effect. The respondents were in violation thereof.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any need for discussion? Officer Gasson, I just want to make sure I understand the intent of what the city, how they view it. You're looking for what in this particular case?
Currently, they're a violator that, looking for a time frame and a potential fine to come into compliance. Initially, my goal was to establish them regardless.
What I would ask you to do from now on, when you have paperwork that's passed out, that is in front of all the board members, that shows to be established, but then you actually don't want it to be established, you're looking for something else. If you point that out to us, it might be beneficial to not only myself, but my fellow board members. Okay?
Understood.
Pardon me?
I said understood.
That's fine, okay. Because you kind of throw us, all right, because we're looking at documentation that says to be established. And I know, I've noticed at least one other board member was mystified just as I was.
And Mr. Chairman, the notice, all this paperwork is prepared many days in advance, and some of it is
I
anticipatory.
understand, all I'm
so-
saying is.
And I don't see that same thing, so I don't exactly see what
Okay.
you guys see, so, but I will.
Perhaps, I'll
Moving
make a
forward.
suggestion. Perhaps you can get the same docket that we have, so that you know what we're seeing, so that if you do want to do something different,
Right.
you'll just let us know ahead of time, so that we know, we know
Understood.
what you're looking for, what the city's intent is.
Understood.
Okay? So, that discussion being over, does anybody care to make a motion?
We have a motion.
We have a
Made
motion.
and
Do we have a second?
Yep.
Okay, then let's take a roll call vote.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vacacy?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes. And boy, we can just roll along when everybody's on the same page. And now I would ask you, Officer Gasson, in this particular case, does the city have any suggested penalty or time limits?
Yes, sir. The residents, or I'm sorry, not the residents, but the property owners live in Chicago, Illinois. We really only had the conversation that it's been mowed. So I would ask the board to go with 30 days. And again, $25 a day to finish and completely put the property into compliance.
All right. Does anybody care to make a motion?
Yeah, I will.
Go ahead, please.
I move that the respondent shall have until September 7th to bring the property into compliance with code sections 8-40 and 8-52, or suffer a fine of $25 a day for each day after the respondent remains in violation of said code section.
Any second?
I second.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, apparently there's no,
Could I make one comment? Maybe it's not, maybe you're coming to be quiet.
sure, go right ahead.
Same deal. We've got an out-of-town owner, and now we're giving different time frames for two different properties. And I think we should make an effort to be a little bit consistent.
Okay,
Just comment. Sorry.
that's fine. Anybody want to discuss this? Go ahead then, Wanda.
The only reason that I'm okay with that one is because they had somebody mow it, and they can probably call them and say, you know, you've got to get the limbs picked up. It's just the limbs laying there, right, that I'm seeing?
Correct. And I can't exactly tell you where they came from. It's a corner lot. People could have dumped
Okay.
on it. So.
But because they did get somebody to mow it, they do have a contact down here, and the woman in New York, I'm just thinking didn't. That's why I was okay with
point
the
it out,
shorter
Allison.
time. And I agree with you. I think, you know, consistency is important. One guy might wonder why somebody else is getting a break, but
Well, I'd have to say that I think each case has to be judged on its own
Right.
merits,
Yeah,
rather
I
than
think
rather
every
than
case-
necessarily consistency. That's at least my position. I guess we're all entitled to our own opinion. So
I hope
let's.
so.
I think every case is different.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add to that? You hope so. What else? Anything?
That's it.
No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay.
Offer a motion.
You have a motion on the table?
All right, then, any further discussion? Then I'd ask the secretary for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes?
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vaquesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer? Yes. Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to our next case, 17-800000411. It's a vacant lot. I learned that last week, what VL stood for, at Oakwood and Banana.
Correct.
And I would ask you, Officer Gasson, apparently there's no one here for that particular piece of property. You may proceed.
Thank you. And for the board's benefit, this case is in compliance and to be established.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Case number 17-800000411. I'm Officer Steve Gasson, City of Tarpon Springs Police Department Code Enforcement. It's a vacant lot located at the northeast corner of Oakwood and Banana in the city. The parcel number is 13-27-15-435778-000-0011. Property is owned by a company called Foresight Contractors with the registered agent as a David Kittenplon. Exhibit number 1 going around are the initial photographs of the property upon the initial inspection and my sign posting. Exhibit number 2 are all of my notices to include the notice of violation and notice of hearing. Exhibit number 3 are administrative documents, including a case summary, property and tax collector's records, also the SunBiz record showing the registered agent in the office, and an email from the landscaping company. Exhibit number 4 is my affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. Case originally started on an anonymous neighbor complaint on July 7th of 2017, advising the lot was overgrown. I'd had priors with this property with the same violation, so it was determined at that time to issue a notice of violation and a notice of hearing to bring it before the board regardless. I sent the notice of violation and the notice of hearing via first class and certified mail on July 7th. I posted the property on July 27th. On August 3rd, I received an email from the landscaping company that was hired by the owner to take care of their property. This owner owns approximately 9 properties within the city. That landscaping company is now contracted to take care of all 9 of their properties. On August 8th, I inspected it. The whole lot was mowed. Everything was cleared, and it was in compliance. On July 28th, we did receive the certified receipts with signatures for the notice of violation and the notice to hearing, which were received in the code office. And as I stated, the whole property is now in compliance, so I'd like the board to consider establishing this property, which would also entail all of his other owned properties in the city in violation of 8-40 and 8-52 moving forward. And I have nothing further at this time.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Officer Gasson?
Was this a complaint?
Yes, ma'am.
I just thought you were at another thing and you noticed.
Well, it was ironic. The reason why they were taken like that is Bayflight was landing
Oh,
at
okay.
Rotary Park,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm like,
noticed.
oh, I got to take care of this. So I was multitasking.
Oh, okay.
I noticed them there.
Okay,
Make a motion.
go ahead then, Mrs. Archer.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented, and the law that at the time of the alleged violations, sections 8-40 and 8-52 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Tarpon Springs were in full force and effect. At the time of the notice of violation, the respondents were in violation of said code section. However, they are now in compliance.
Anyone care to second that motion?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Apparently there's no need for discussion. I'd ask the secretary for a roll call vote, please.
One moment, sir, excuse me.
Fine, take your time.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes?
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vaquesi?
Yes.
Ms. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Brings us to our next case, vacant lot on Riverside. It's case number 17-800000421. Anybody here for the vacant lot on Riverside? Apparently not. Officer Gasson, you may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this is a repeat violator case under case number 15-800000390 for violations of section 8-40 and 8-52. That was heard before this board on September 10th of 2015. Current case is 17-800000421. As stated, it's a vacant lot on Riverside near 811 Riverside Drive. The parcel number is 11-27-15-87876. 015-0210, property owner listed as Maria Koulianos. As I stated, this is a repeat violator case. It was it's currently in compliance. It was out of compliance from July 14th to July 20th. So for 6 days, it was out of compliance. And presenting before the board 5 exhibits. The first exhibit are my photographs, including the initial inspection and the sign posting of the property. Exhibit number 2 are my notices, including the notice of hearing for a repeat violator. And exhibit number 3 are administrative documents to include the case summary, property appraiser and tax collector records, and officer emails. Exhibit number 4 is the affidavit of posting and a copy of the sign. This case also includes an affidavit of prosecution costs that's included as exhibit number 5 in the amount of $120.50. Initially, I conducted the first inspection July 14th. It is based on a neighbor complaint, a very diligent neighbor, that the property was overgrown, needs to be mowed, edged, and trimmed. As I stated earlier, it was established September 10th of 2015 for similar violations. I conducted a re-inspection. I received a phone call from the property owner on July 20th, and they stated they had mowed the property. I wasn't able to inspect it until July 25th, so in all fairness, I went by their date of July 20th because I wasn't going to go an extra 5 days. It was my fault, not his. So that's the reason why the dates are July 14th to July 20th, even though I conducted my inspection 5 days after that. As I stated, when I did conduct that inspection, it was in compliance. I posted the property on July 27th, and then we submitted the affidavit of prosecution costs for $120.50 on July 31st. The owner's local. I frequently speak to her and her mother. Unfortunately, mom went to Greece, so I talked to the brother. He was aware. We've had a lot of conversation, and here we are as a repeat violator for 6 days. So, and I really, at this point, have nothing further other than to request the board find them in violation of 8-40, 8-52 for those 6 days as a repeat violator.
Okay, and just so that I fully understand what your intent is, you're looking for a motion for a repeat violation with a fine, and they're now in compliance.
Correct, and
right.
then submitting the affidavit of prosecution costs additionally.
That's fine. Does anybody have any questions for Officer Gasson? Does anybody care to make a motion in this case?
I will.
Go ahead, please.
I move that based on the testimony, evidence, facts presented in law that Maria Koulianos, respondent, was in violation of sections 8-40 and 8-52 of the Tarpon Springs City Code from July 14th to July 20th. And a fine of $50 per day for 6 days, or a fine of, what did I say? $300 per day for, oh God, for or a fine of $300. In addition, I move that the city be awarded $120.50 for the cost incurred in prosecuting the case.
Second.
Any discussion? Anybody care to make a comment? Apparently, there's no discussion or comments. I'd ask the secretary for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
No.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer? Mr. DeMoss?
Yes. Okay. That brings us to affidavits of non-compliance.
Here's one.
Only three.
Separate, they all have, you'll notice on the agenda, there are three separate, we notice in the audience, there's no one here in the audience to address any of these affidavits, so we need to address them separately because of the affidavit of prosecution of costs that's being submitted on these three cases for non-compliance. And there, looks like they're being passed down the dais here, so you'll see them in just a moment.
I just need somebody to make a motion on each case.
Correct, yeah. You have a form motion in your file.
Can't believe these are so complicated. All right, we already have them in front of us, so we're not waiting to see anything, right?
With a fine.
I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that the respondent failed to timely comply with this board's prior order within the time prescribed, and to the city,
And
to award the city, okay, I have no idea.
On there.
Number 12.
Oh, okay. $265 for the costs incurred in the prosecution of this case.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, any need for discussion? Vote. Would the secretary have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Mrs. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vaquesi?
Yes?
Mrs. Archer? Yes. Mr. DeMonte?
Yes. That brings us to the next case of affidavit of noncompliance. It's listed at 17-800000080.
All right. I move based on the testimony, evidence, fact presented in law that the respondent failed to timely comply with this board's prior order within the time prescribed and to award the city $223 for the costs incurred in the prosecuting of this case.
Okay, any discussion? Apparently no need to discussion. I would ask the secretary for...
gave the second, is that correct? Thank you, sorry.
Had 2 seconds. They both spoke over each other, so I'm not sure who wants to take the credit for it.
That's fine. I got Ms. Wade as the second, Mrs. Archer
That's
as the
fine.
first.
Let's move on, okay? Let's have that roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vaquesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer? Yes. Mr. DeMonte?
DeMontis, yes. Okay, that brings us to our last affidavit of noncompliance. It's case number 17-800000228-237 East Lime Street. Anybody care to make a motion in regards to this case?
I will. I move based on the testimony, evidence, and facts presented in law that the respondents failed to timely comply with this board's prior order within the time prescribed and to award the city $276 for the cost incurred in prosecuting of this case.
Any second?
Yes. For the
All right.
purpose of discussion.
Pardon me?
For the purpose of discussion.
All right, for the purpose of discussion. Does anybody care to discuss this case?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
That one on East Lyme, those people own a lot of vacant lots in the area. And they've had this problem since April, as I recall, of not complying with it, with our request. Do you know what's going on? Why is that? Why they normally reply and do the right thing?
Some of the properties, as we discussed at one of the code boards, they have to go out to bid because they're a government. Their entity is primarily, they're a 513 or 531. They're a charitable organization.
Up, officer,
Sorry.
for everybody.
They're a charitable organization, so everything they do primarily has to go through a lot of chains to get approval. And they have to get bids, and they have to submit those bids to a board, and it has to be approved. So some of their larger projects are harder for them to take care of. Mowing and things like that, I don't typically have problems with Bright Community Trust, but when it becomes like large amounts of debris, fixing things, they have to go to bid. So it's unfortunately a much longer process for those kind of things for them. That's what I've encountered. As I stated, you stated, they have a number of properties, and primarily they're very good about taking care of them on the basic level. It's when advanced stuff happens.
Okay.
Right?
Further questions from me?
Anybody else want to make a comment or have a question in regards to this case? If not, we'll go for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes?
Ms. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vacasie?
Yeah.
Mrs. Archer? Yes. Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, and would anybody like to make a motion in regards to the affidavit of compliance?
I will. I move
ahead,
to
please.
accept the affidavits of compliance on case number 16-800000547.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes?
Mrs. Dabbs?
Yes.
Ms. Vacasie?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer? Yes. Mr. Demasis?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to old business, and the old business is case number 16-800000147. It's 1117 East Lime Street, and it's a request. I believe you'll have the documentation in front of you. There's a letter dated August 2, 2017 to the members of the Tarpon Springs Code Board requesting a reduction in fines on this particular piece of property. It's listed as a new owner, Jesus Aquino, and he has presented some documentation that I would suggest that we look at. And
Mr. Chairman, if I could also read the rules, since we've got a couple of new board members.
go ahead,
Mind
sir.
the board. So this is Rule 5, Section 4 of your Rules of Procedure. It reads, after a fine has been imposed by the board, within 60 days after the violation is brought into compliance, a violator may petition for reconsideration of fine. The petition must be in writing, signed by the violator, and include a copy of the affidavit of compliance executed by the code inspector. The petition must include conclusive evidence showing extreme or undue hardship in the payment of the fine or preventing the violator to come into compliance within the time period established by the board's order. The board secretary shall schedule the petition to be considered, and the board shall make its determination based solely upon the written petition. The board may request information from the code inspector. The board secretary shall notify the violator by regular mail of the determination made by the board. No petition for reduction of fine will be considered prior to the board's acceptance of an affidavit of compliance. Under no circumstances may the amount of the fine be reduced below the costs of the action. Under no circumstances may the amount of the fine be reduced once the Board of Commissioners authorizes the foreclosure of the Code Enforcement Board lien. Additionally, under no circumstances may the amount of the fine for a repeat violation be reduced. That is the rule you are to consider when you're making your determination as to whether or not that you're going to reduce this particular fine.
Okay, and am I correct in that the board can question the city's representative?
You can ask questions, but he's not to give narrative. He's just supposed to give you an answer. So,
And I'd like to ask a question, Officer Gasson. What is the present fine against this property?
It is showing $98,491.40.
98.
And does the city have any particular position, having also
That's
been copied
Okay.
this request?
I've just been advised that fine is incorrect by Bobby.
Yeah. For this citation of 16-800000147.
There's like 7 cases.
But they're only considering this one case. They're not reducing all of them. You only brought the one. Is this correct, Mr. Trask?
But I think they have like 7 liens.
But you're not reducing all 7 at this time.
Okay, let's pause and we'll get a ruling from our legal counsel.
Trying to find his letter. Is this his letter, Mr. This?
That would be his letter, sir, yes.
So, this is only on one case. It's case 16-8000147. That's the only case that he's asking for a fine reduction on.
Only
So,
case.
Okay, do we know what the fine is on
Yes.
this one particular case?
On $16,300.
$16,300.
$300.
Just a few days.
remember now, that petition has to meet those requirements of your rule.
Officer Gasson, does the city have any position on this matter?
Yes, sir. Because of the fact that these liens were all recorded, so innocent ownership is kind of doesn't apply because, like I stated, all he had to do was a title search and he would have seen all these liens on the property. He requested a zero fine. The city's position was 5%. When we were totaling all of them, but on this particular one, 5% comes to $815 and $250 in administrative costs.
So, just so that I can clarify and make sure that I understand, you're indicating that the city would have no objection to the fine on this particular piece of property to be reduced to $815 and also with the addition of $250 in costs.
Correct. $815 and $250 is a total of $1,065. I think if I did the math right, yes.
I have a question.
Pardon me?
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Okay,
And
am
speak
I-
up for the benefit of the people at the other end.
Officer Gatson, am I to understand that the present owner inherited these fines?
He purchased the property, and yes, he inherited the liens.
And is that a standard thing?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you, I'm asking Officer Gasson, please.
I've purchased property, and I did a title search, and I knew if there were liens on it or not. I mean, you can do it without doing that, and this is the situation you end up with.
Let me ask Mr. Trask, in general, does the lien remain with the property?
The lien will remain with the property for 20 years after it's recorded until it's released or otherwise satisfied.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody have any further questions for Officer Gasson? Apparently not.
How can a property, and I might be off, Caleb, but how can a property be sold?
Right.
That what it was sold? When there's the liens on it like that?
Quick claim versus warranty deed?
People buy property all day long, every day
Ken?
Well, we've had many of these cases.
with these liens.
Yeah. That was my point, that he just didn't do a lien
So
search.
I mean, you know, there were people have then purchased it and then made a request because they were the new purchaser.
No.
I thought if you bought it with a lien, you paid the lien.
But very often you can get it at a much lower price because there is a lien against it. Anyway, any further questions for Officer Gasson in regards to this request? Does anybody care to make a motion in regards to this request?
Which one is it? I don't see
It's
a
clear on the
motion-
back.
Motion here for,
Yeah, the very last page.
okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I'll make it. Let me see if I got the numbers here. I move.
Okay, there's the
Mhm.
fine.
While you're thinking about that, I want to remind you that the petition has to show that there is an extreme undue hardship in bringing the property into compliance.
Okay. I move
So that.
that the fine of $16,300 that's right?
Don't use my numbers.
Oh.
Over here. That is. That's the fine.
Yeah, be in case number 16
Vote no against the
-8 $0.00000147 be reduced to $815 plus $250 for a total of $1,065. This fine reduction will occur upon payment of the state reduced amount if paid within 60 working days of this order. Failure to pay the reduced fine will revert back to the original amount of $16,310.
Okay, we've got a motion. Any second?
Second for discussion.
All right. Any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
I don't think it meets the threshold.
He needs to talk into the.
Pardon?
They can't hear you.
Oh. I don't think in this case that this meets the threshold necessary in order to vote on this.
The property
There's no hardship identified within the letter.
the property owner inherited the fines, is that correct?
Yes.
Could have inherited the fine, but he bought the property.
Yeah, but it's not his fault.
I guess I'm kind of in agreement. I would like to know what the nuisance prohibitions, that mean long grass, or do we?
It's a vacant lot. It was overgrown.
Okay.
I have a question I'd like to address to Officer Gasson. I want to make sure, Mr. Trask, if that's possible.
You're running the meeting. Yeah, I'd say yeah.
Okay, well then on my own authority, I guess I'll ask him a question. All right, I had earlier asked, what's the city's position? All right, and you indicated, did you not, that a reduction to $815 would be acceptable on the part of the city in this case?
Yes, and there was a logic behind that, and that the logic I vaguely explained was the fact that he simply could have done a title search and he truly would have been innocent ownership. But he was aware, by his own omission, he would have found out there were liens and then wouldn't have been inheriting these liens. So that's what the city's position of 5%, because he isn't the one who was the violator. We understand that. But his lack of research.
Okay, so rather than accept his request for a zero
Correct.
Reduction, but the city does consider that they would be satisfied with the $815 plus $250 in costs.
Correct.
Okay,
I
now,
want to make sure that I understand the city's position.
what I don't understand is you say he didn't inherit this, but his own letter said he bought the property in September of 2016 and brought it into compliance in May of 2017. So it looks like it was his problem.
I can't answer that, ma'am.
Okay, so it looks like it was his problem. I don't understand this.
Fine began on this property on July 8th, 2016.
26.
Yeah, before he.
Okay. Okay. That answers my question. Thank you, Bobby. One thing I would like to mention, though, and not on this because he did inherit it, was we used to ask people to see their tax return to prove. To see their tax return to prove that it was a hardship. And again, in this case, he did inherit it. Although I don't understand why I didn't see it on the title search, but I would like to make sure that in the future, when we do look at a fine reduction, that we get a little more paperwork from the people asking it to prove that it's a hardship, if it's not something that they inherited. Okay, that's it.
Let me just jump in.
Yeah.
The word inherit has nothing to do with this case at all.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This guy is probably an investor. He bought the lot. He's coming to you whining and crying that there's a lien on it and he can't do anything with it. And so he's basically on his knees asking you for forgiveness and hoping that you'll reduce the fine. The bottom line is that he damn well knew about it. And if he didn't know about it, then he needs to show you what portion of the rule he has met. He has one sentence in his letter saying, please reduce the fine. There is nothing in that letter that meets the requirements of your rule.
All right.
Extreme or undue hardship. He doesn't say, I've got $400,000 worth of health bills, I've got cancer, I can't make my house payment, and so on. What he's done is he's given you one sentence and says, please reduce the fine. So if you want to ignore your own rules, which you have the ability to do, I would not suggest that you do that. They're there for a reason. And that's the reason why in years past, we have said to these people when they file their petitions, show us how it's an undue hardship. And Ms. Vacacy remembers back in the day when people were actually doing that. They were providing their tax returns, providing you with additional information that would help you make a rational decision based upon your rule. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I'm
but,
appreciative.
But I've said 3 times now, you know, it's got to meet your rule and the reasons why the rule was created. If you want to change your rules, let's change your rules. Otherwise, I mean, you don't have to have this language in there, extreme or undue hardship. But I will tell you that every other city that I represent has it. And
well, I think somewhat some of us may have been thrown by the city's position that they were willing to accept a reduction to $815. And having sat on this board for 4 years, I've seen where very often the city makes a recommendation and the board accepts that recommendation, including ones with reductions. So we've had in the past reductions where the city has indicated what they would be satisfied with. Okay? Now this particular one may not have been supported to the degree that those cases have, and each case is on its own merit. And I'm not arguing that it be reduced to $815. But I think that perhaps it's incumbent upon the city, okay, to also, when they prior to making a suggestion, to also consider what the statutes indicate, not just the board members, because there may be some people within the city government that are a lot more knowledgeable about these matters. We're all volunteers. We're doing the best that we can. So personally, and as the board chairman and as somebody that has sat on the board, I take into great consideration what the city suggests. And maybe I shouldn't be governed by that, but I certainly put a lot of weight on it. So, and I also put a lot of weight on what you say, Mr. Jack. Okay, you've been an able and capable advisor from the first time I sat here. I'm getting towards the end of my tenure, so I've been working with you for 4 years. So I certainly take your position, and I think we all appreciate it, and we certainly see the power behind what you've indicated, and you certainly have ably expressed your opinion. All that having been said, we do have a motion. I think we have a motion that was seconded for discussion. So let's vote on that, and then maybe we can move on. So with the motion, unless there's further discussion at this time, let's vote on what's in front of us, and that was to accept $815, a reduction to that, and $250 in costs for a total of $1,065. And I'd like everybody to please consider all of what you've heard up to this point when you make your vote. So can I get a roll call vote, please, from the secretary?
Mr. Weeks,
No.
Ms. Wade,
No.
Ms. Dabbs,
Yes.
Ms. Vacacy,
No.
Mrs. Archer? No. Mr. DeMoss?
No. Okay. Can we get, we still have this case in front of us. Again, that motion does not pass. All right?
I'll make a
Here
motion.
to make another
The
motion.
full amount that is,
$16,300.
I don't think we need to go into a lot of, I think it's just to deny the motion, correct?
Is that all?
Yeah. I move to deny.
Okay,
the
so we've denied his
request?
request. That's it then, right?
so we need a motion to deny the request.
I move
Okay.
to,
So
I
we
make
need,
a,
Wanda, we need a motion to deny the request.
I know. I make a motion to deny the request of the fine reduction in the case of 16-800000147.
All right.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny the request. Can we get a voice vote?
Mr. Weeks?
Yes.
Ms. Wade?
Yes?
Ms. Dabbs?
No.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer?
Yes.
Mr. Demosas?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to the approval of the minutes for the June 2017 meeting. Okay, does anybody want to make a motion that we accept the minutes of June 2017?
Can I do that first? I'd like to
Go
move that
ahead.
we accept those minutes.
Okay, anybody want to second that motion?
Second?
Okay, first and a second. Can we get a voice vote, please? Pardon?
Mr.
Oh, can we just get A or nay, is that it?
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. All right, motion passes.
Can I talk to you before you
Yeah, we're
adjourn the
gonna go
meeting?
to new business, and that's when you wanted to bring this up.
Yeah.
I also have something for new business as well. A quick
Okay, well, I'm gonna defer to Mr. Trask, because he's closer to me. He's right on my right, he's sitting right next to me, and I wanna take, and he gets a higher fee than you do,
Yes, he does.
I believe, Officer Gasson.
Um,
Mr. Trask?
Okay, it's my understanding that some of you have either received a phone call from the wife of the property owner at 1717 Mandalay, or actually have seen her in person. And first of all, I don't want you to tell me what she said, but I want you to know that this often happens when we live in a small community. You may run into someone in the grocery store or at City Hall. In a worst-case scenario, they show up at your front door. You have no legal obligation to speak to these people. And I will tell you that you do have a legal obligation while a case is pending before you to make it known to the board when you come to the meeting that you have had a conversation with the individual. We call it an ex parte communication. And that is that you will just have to notify the board members that you spoke to the person and a summary of what was discussed during that conversation. So you haven't done anything wrong if you've talked to the person, you just need to make it known. So the thought process behind that is that you've gathered some information that the other board members don't have in their possession when a decision is being made on their case. And so acknowledging the fact that you spoke to the person and giving them a summary lets all the other board members know the same basic information. So I know it's inconvenient, and I know that you really don't want to deal with people outside of this because it's uncomfortable when you're ruling on their cases, and I would just tell you the easiest way, and my suggestion is just tell them, thank you, I'm on the code enforcement board, I can't discuss this with you, and then move on. For those of you that did talk to the lady, I'm not sure if this is going to be coming back before us or not, but you may start seeing a lot more of these cases in the future where you're going to be asked to approve foreclosures of code enforcement liens. I will tell you that for the city of Dunedin, I do them every single month. There may be 3 to 5 of them a month I'm asking for the right to foreclose. You have not seen them, but there may be a shift to do that to make sure that properties are being brought into compliance because the owners are not doing that, and sometimes it requires to force them to do it by foreclosure. So hopefully I've answered questions. I know I received an email this morning from one of you, and I know that I received a phone call from Officer Gasson today about a conversation with another board member, and I know that Mr. DeMatteis had a run-in with the lady as well. So just if this comes back next month, if you could just tell us whether or not that you've spoken to the person or person dealing with the case, and tell us a summary of what was discussed, and then we can move on with the case. So does anybody have any questions about that? I don't want to go and get into the factual matter of the case because it's not appropriate, because they are not here to defend themselves. So I don't really want to get into the facts of the case. Do you have any questions about the process of them speaking to you? No?
I'm just curious how they get our names and addresses.
I'm not sure how they're getting your names and addresses other than looking you up on the, the city's website. what your name is, and then maybe making
Okay.
a phone call by way of being in the phone book or look you up on the property appraiser's records. I'm not sure how they're doing it, but.
You know, that's a little disconcerting because, and I guess it is a matter of public record, but gosh, I've made some motions here that weren't real popular. So that was kind of a shock last night.
Well, I can only say I was very shocked because I ended up getting a phone call, went down to the gate. I'm in a gated community, and the first thing I said was I didn't, you know, how do I know you? I don't know you. She began, and I immediately said, I absolutely can't speak to you about anything to do with code enforcement. I can only deal with that within the code enforcement meeting. She was persistent.
Well, yeah.
And I have to tell you, I was very uncomfortable. I was a hearing officer in my former career on the railroad for 22 years. I handled over 5,000 cases, and no one ever confronted me at my home. And I have to tell you, it was disconcerting, as Wanda indicated. And, you know, this is a voluntary positions that we take, and we do the best that we can for the city of Tarpon Springs. And I have to tell you, I did not like to be contacted, and I don't know that anybody would. And the only thing I said to the couple was, this isn't right. You're not supposed to contact anybody on the board. I had no idea that anybody else was contacted until I walked in.
She doesn't take no for an answer because five times I told her not to. What time did she come to your place?
Well,
Came around 6:30.
with anything else, if
Think
somebody's
she
at
hit me
your
just ahead.
property that you don't want on your property,
Pardon me?
if somebody's at your property that you don't want at your property, the police are the solution to that, and we'll take care of that problem. Whatever reason, you don't have to have other than, I simply don't want you on my property and I don't feel comfortable.
Well, I wasn't
we'll
on
help you
my
with that.
property, I was on the homeowner's.
Understood.
But nonetheless, I think any of us that were contacted it was certainly something that was, at least, I believe, upsetting
Mhm.
to be contacted that way. And it appeared to me that I wasn't sure how it was going to escalate, and I don't like to be in that type of a position. And I feel somewhat comforted by the fact that she obviously contacted other members of the board, because I thought it was just her and I, and you know, how do I respond? So I find it somewhat comforting that she didn't just pick me out. Apparently she talked to several people, but it was inappropriate on her part. I think somebody needs to tell her that besides me.
She was.
Well, I heard that if they ask for our names, that the city's allowed to give them our names,
record.
but they don't give out addresses or phone numbers. They
Well,
find that
I
out
wish
on
in
their
that
own.
case, somebody from the city had called me up, because then I would have been somewhat prepared. I was in the middle of my supper and got a half a story that somebody was at the gate that a mile or two from my house that wanted to come in and see me. So I had to leave my supper, get in the car, go over there, and it took me a few minutes. It was disconcerting. It took me a few minutes to figure out what the heck she wanted. So I guess had somebody called me from the city and said, just want to let you know, someone's come in here, you're the chairman or you're a member of the board, and they've requested your name, they've requested your address. At least that way I would know, okay, when they call me from the gatehouse, I would know this is somebody, and I can tell them.
And just so you know, no addresses were given.
Well, then
She asked for
then I
names,
can only say
and
they did
it's
a good
happened
job,
actually
because they
quite a
apparently were
few
able to
times
track
where
us
people
all
have
down.
asked for names. So, and we haven't notified you. I mean,
I'm in the book.
certainly can. You might be surprised at the number of phone calls or emails you get that somebody asks your name.
I would only hope that I got a nice Greek name. Too bad there weren't about 50 of us Dematzises here in Tarpon Springs. I'm the only one. So anyway, I'm glad that you brought it up, Mr. Trask. And
I have something too.
Can I have a question?
just a second, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm done. But I want to, on behalf of being the chairman, I'm sorry if anybody else had to go through that, if it was distressing to you. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, because I know both the city and I, as the chairman of the board, really appreciate everybody's effort to do the right thing. So I would encourage us all maybe to put it aside. We know what we should do now, and just continue to do the best we can for the city of Tarpon Springs. And I'm off my soapbox, so you go right ahead.
Well, I'm not gonna elaborate on what's been said, and, Mr. Kraft told us what we needed to do for the next time. But, is that why it was removed?
No.
Okay.
Oh, good question, Becky.
She wanted to know why it was
Why it was
removed, if it was removed because, from the agenda.
Is there any way we can block our address?
Block your address?
Yeah, on the,
I don't think they fall under the exemptions like law enforcement and, we were gonna look into that, but I don't think they fall under,
I don't think your address is protected.
Can't we get black hoods that we can all just come in here with just eye holes and no one will know who we are? All right. Does anybody have any other new business?
I do.
Maybe- Go ahead.
Just really quickly, I'd like the board to consider, due to some training issues in September, I'm requesting that the board meeting be moved to Thursday, September 21st at our normal hearing time due to me being in Escambia County, Florida that week, the previous week.
Okay. I would just say is that I won't be able to be available that day, so I'm not sure.
Oh, you can be chairman. You signed up for the job.
I can be available the following Thursday.
I mean, we're doing them at that point basically back to back, if that's okay with the board.
I only know what I'm already committed to, so
Understand.
I just want to let everybody know. And there's capable people. You don't need me. And I've only missed one meeting in 4 years, but I had scheduled a out-of-town trip based on my requirement to be here on the second Thursday. So when you want to change the date, you threw a curve at me.
So it's either go ahead with what Officer Gasson asks, or just completely not have it that month and just go to the next month.
It's a decision of the board.
28
I-
cases.
I will tell you, you guys can see what the case volume is, and
I
this
was
is
gonna
kind of
say, we had
season.
double the cases.
October will be substantial.
You want to do it?
So-
Okay, what Thursdays are available for you besides the 21st that you've suggested? If
Pretty much
any.
the 21st for that month, and then I go into, I'm available October 5th, which is the week before the normally scheduled code board.
Becky, I'll help.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'll change my plans. We'll make it the 21st. Okay. Is everybody in agreement? The 21st would be okay with you? If anybody has a problem with the 21st? Okay, the 21st, officer.
Thank you very much, sir.
And I hope I don't get any parking tickets between now and then in Tarpon Springs.
Did I write your work?
Okay. I guess we're done. I'm trying to be funny. Anybody else have any comments before we adjourn? Apparently not. Meeting adjourned.
Okay.
What happened to those 3-case meetings we used to have?
A more proactive code enforcement officer.
Evidently.
You don't get that regular.
I guess it's job security.
oh, do you? Okay. My wife and I always think about
Yeah,
that. And
it's a resolution.
Then about, 6:30 or so, we'd say, I don't know, man, it's too much. But, I'll try to make it. That'd be good.
You don't have to give them a form.
I know, I was just talking.
Yeah, stop helping them.
She doesn't take
Because
no
then